The idea was, how do we do a movie about this period of life? And at first I thought, about all sorts of actors, and then one day I realized, oh, it should just be Pete and Debbie from Knocked Up. In the beginning I wasn't thinking about that at all. And then I realized, oh, people are really interested in these characters, and we didn't explore them that deeply. Some of what's fun about Knocked Up is, Pete and Debbie get in this big fight, and Pete goes to Vegas with Ben, and then when they get back, they're just together. And Ben doesn't understand that because Heigl won't get back together with him. But that's what marriage is. You have to figure it out. We shot Knocked Up in 2006, so I figured, wow, they're going to just look different since it's been 6 years right there. And that would be interesting to see that little kid talking about how you have a baby is now really pissed about a bunch of stuff, and she's like a real kid who yells at you. But when you have children and you have responsibilities, everything goes out the window. You can't be that carefree person anymore. That's a little bit of what Knocked Up was about. Seth's character was having fun and he was loose and going wild, but the second he gets someone pregnant, it's over. You have to be a normal person now. Right. And so this movie's a little bit about what happens after you spend 15 years being a normal person, and how do you make it work? How do you keep it fresh? You have this moment in your life where you think, okay, this is what we did. This is our family, and this is our jobs, and these are our kids, and how are we getting along? Does it work? Can we make it better? Right. Do we want to leave? Do we want to renew our vows? And I think everybody feels that in some way, and we all have different ways of approaching it. And then we had dinner with Paul, and his wife Julie, where we would just talk about everything that we were fighting about, and everything our friends were fighting about. A movie like this is always a combination between stuff that's happened to us, stuff that's happened to Paul, and stuff we're observing and making up. Leslie does a lot of things that most people can't do at the same time, which is she can be really raw and emotional, and she can show pain and frustration and anger while also being really, really funny. It's just a tone that I don't see other people able to pull off. And she's a collaborator on every aspect of the script. I come up with ideas and start writing, and as I show her things, she says, "Yeah, but you're not talking about that." And then that becomes a scene, and over the course of a year or two, it's a real collaboration between the two of us in finding balance between the male and the female point of view about marriage and parenthood and this part of life. I think the movie is fun to watch because if you're young, it's fun to laugh at your parents, and also to understand everything that they go through. It has our usual style of humor because it is an R-rated family movie. And then if you are the age of the people in the movie, you just relate to all of it. And if you're older, you're happy it's over, and so you enjoy it from that angle.
It's fun to talk about our relationship in a movie structure, because then we can, it kind of takes the tension out of it, and and we can talk about ourselves objectively. Yes. And I think it's been kind of cathartic in that way for us, and so that's how we've approached it. I don't want to say midlife crisis, but I guess they're in the middle of a midlife crisis. Okay. And just trying to it's a stage that they have to get through, but getting through it sucks. But they know that there's light at the end of the tunnel if they just stick with it. But sticking with it is the hardest thing in the world to do. You can't keep kids away from electronic stuff. I think you just have to try and educate them and hope that they can make good decisions on their own, because the truth is you're not always going to be around to watch them, and they're sneaky. Well, I don't think it's ever about the little issues. I think there's always like some big problem, and you get to let off steam by yelling at them about the little issues, like sitting on the toilet on his iPad for too long. So it's always, you know, the bigger issue, and that's always in the movie. I think we get an idea of what the big issue is, but then they're just constantly letting off steam by yelling at each other,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
over the little things. It was so nice. It was so nice to have that we have that relationship established, and we're very close in real life, and feel very comfortable around each other, and we're so comfortable with the characters, and we just had so much fun. It was really, really nice.
Issues with just being together for a while and trying to tolerate each other when it's sometimes tough when you're just married to somebody, just tolerate them sometimes. You love them, but you also kind of can't stand them many times. And so this is a couple that's going to try and fix a lot of the things, you know, really. It's a big moment. We're both turning 40, and let's make what's good better, and let's make what's bad good. Judd is like a real, he's like a conductor when a scene is going on. He's a maestro, and he will take a scene in some direction. We'll be in the middle of it. He'll yell things out. He will steer it, and I'll pick up what he's yelling out and then try and take it in another direction, and it becomes a very fluid experience. The scene becomes nebulous. You don't really know exactly what it'll be when he starts. He doesn't yell cut very often, so we'll go through a long take, and it'll find its way, and then we'll hone in on certain aspects of what we were doing. And I have come to really love the freedom that he affords us. Sometimes you just click. You have chemistry with whoever you're working with. Your styles match. You like working in the same way. Sometimes it's like, you know, you can't put your finger on why that is. But I feel that with Leslie. I mean, I really like working with her, and I feel as if people. It just feels easy in the right ways, you know. I mean, I think that it's convincing, like, that we would be married. And it seems like oh yeah, no, that actually seems like that could be a real couple. When we did Knocked Up, Maude was Iris's age now, and I've known Maude for a big chunk of her life, and now she's 13. She's a person, and I deal with her differently. I talk to her differently. The things she's interested are different than what she was interested in when she was 8, and so, you know, it's great because I do feel like, you know, oh, they're my kids in a way, and I love them. While working with Albert Brooks, I mean, every moment is a pretty great moment. When, you know, for me, he's just always been one of my heroes. I don't know, you know, Albert Brooks is rarefied air, and when I heard he was doing this, I know, like, before he was cast, you know, Judd was saying, you know, I think I want to go to Albert Brooks for your dad, and I was elated. I couldn't believe it. And then when he said yes, then I remember rehearsing with him for the first time. Yeah. And, you know, we read through the scenes, and then we would improvise for hours. And then Judd would take those improvisations and things from it and then maybe put them back into the script. And he has a very specific style, Albert Brooks, because they never worked together. But it felt a little bit in that room like, you know, jamming with the Beatles.
I play the father of the character Paul Rudd plays, and it's a guy who's not had great luck his whole life. His relationship now with his son is predominantly about getting money so he can pay his rent, because he has 3 small children, triplets. And I guess you could call it accidental. They weren't expecting it. And, but it's a loving relationship, but it's based on him giving me money. Well, this was my second wife. My first wife passed on, and she was in her 40s and wanted children, and I wanted to be a dutiful husband, and we did in vitro because, you know, she was at the end of that time when you can have children. And as I say in the movie, nobody thought it would take. It was just something to do, to be nice, and we wound up with 3 blonde German children. It's one of the things that appealed to me, because I had seen a lot of relationships with father-sons all over the place. And one of them, I'm sure it's been done, but it wasn't something that's been done so much that you don't want to try it again, is the father, is the roles that are reversed, where the father becomes the son. Hey, I need you, I got to help, give me $20 like an allowance. And that's what I responded to the most. I said, that's because you know all the cliche father things where you come, get out, and all that stuff. We've seen that. But this really is a role reversal, and I liked that idea a lot.
I emailed Judd and I said, let me just come visit the set. He said, sure. And I sat and watched him at work with other actors. And like in 3 minutes, all my anxieties were gone. I absolutely loved this process, and I saw how it worked. I sat right behind him as he sat watching the monitors, and I couldn't wait. And a week later, I came to work in my own right, and it's a fantastic process. For this man who's been very ill at ease and stuffy, I mean, his comedy has been the comedy of discomfort up until this point. Just one awkward moment after another, just wishing he weren't even there. I mean, every time you look at him, he wishes he wasn't there. Right. And, my own need to be willing to be a quite unsympathetic, cold, and tight-assed character. Right. And then to see him crack open a little bit and realize he doesn't want to be that way. That's what, it seems to me that's the arc of the character. This man who is a kind of mysterious character, kind of cold character and aloof, not wanting to get involved. The fact that something makes these 2 little girls respond to their grandfather, whom they've never even met. Something in it, almost chemical, almost biological. They respond to him, and he to them. And he happens to be wonderful with these kids. It's like his empathy as a father has jumped a generation. Judd described that as a notion when we first got together.
This character is just a little more like amped up version. I feel like so is Iris. We're both a little bit more mellow. Like, I'm crying and screaming and cursing a lot. And I don't do that. That's not true. But there is also the Iris and I fight. She asks to watch Lost. I say no. Like, that's something that's happened.
Maude actually cried. Like, there's a scene where she found out that Debbie, my mom, yelled at Joseph, and she starts crying, but actually really starts crying.
I was so nervous for that, and I was really scared that I wasn't gonna cry and it wasn't gonna be good. And when I did it with acting coach, I was really nervous because I didn't feel like I was doing a very good job for when I did it with him. So then my dad was talking to me about it, and I was just shaking. I was so nervous. And Iris comes in when we did the rehearsal. Iris comes in and she sits down. And I start doing it, like I'm trying to do it, and she starts laughing. And I was like, and then I just started crying because it was like anxiety and anger and like so many different emotions at the same time. And then I just started crying and like I just did it.
I made a movie called Tiny Furniture. Judd saw that movie, miraculously. I still, to this day, don't know quite how that happened. And he wrote me an email about it, which I thought was a prank. And then he got involved with a pilot that I was in the process of writing for HBO, which has since become a series, which Judd named Girls, and which is going to now be called, Judd joke titled Girls, but now is actually going to be called Girls. So Judd executive produces the show, and so I've spent a lot of time with him writing, casting, just kind of sucking up his general knowledge. And so, and I'd been involved as he was writing the script in reading drafts and giving notes, and so when he asked me to come and do some acting, I was excited and honored, and I find myself here today. My character's name is Kat. She works at Pete, Paul Rudd's record label, Unfiltered, and she's fresh out of college, and she's sort of she was recently promoted from an intern. This is her first job. She wants to do a really great job, but she's a little bit of a yes woman. Every idea Pete has, she's sort of cheering him on because she doesn't really know another way to deal with having a boss. And she also has this really antagonistic relationship with Ronnie, played by Chris O'Dowd, who is her co-employee. There's only the two of them.
Ronnie is the guy that works in Paul Rudd's record company. I think he was probably recruited to bring in European bands and Irish and British bands. And as time went on, he probably realized that Pete, Paul's character, just wanted to recruit the oldest people he could find. So I found that my job is kind of pointless, and I'm not good at it. So it's a pointless job that I'm bad at, and that's the character really. So I'm kind of that music guy who's kind of cool a bit with music, and then as soon as I meet a woman, I kind of fall apart, which is what happens when I meet any woman, including Lena's character in the film and Megan Fox, which I don't deal very well with emotionally or physically. I think it's a really beautiful story of a relationship that I don't think will have been on screen in a very long time. I think it's very relatable and very honest and very truthful. In the same way, I think that kind of Bridesmaids touched on female friendship in a way that hadn't been seen in a long time. I think this touches on marriage. And I think that people will really go for it. I think it's beautiful.
It's sort of a confession of his real life and things that he's going through, or maybe the kids are going through, or Leslie's going through. I think it echoes some sort of reality for them, which is cool. I mean, it puts them all in sort of a very vulnerable position to then have to edit it and put it together and make a story. It's a story of accepting your problems and learning to love them. It has its own identity and its own original theme to it. It's got two characters that were in Knocked Up, but it has nothing to do with Knocked Up. It's its own thing. And I feel like the only selling point it needs is that it's a Judd Apatow movie.